Item number 2, extraordinary business. I know of none. There is none. Number 3, declarations of interest. No declarations of interest. We'll move on to reports. Item number 4. And item number 4 is the COVID-19 Response Committee. And I'll hand over to Hamish, the author of the report, to take us through it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this report is hopefully reasonably self-explanatory. Right across New Zealand, councils are contemplating the COVID-19 situation. We're contemplating how do we ensure decision-making and local governance through a period of lockdown. Last week, you'll recall, as part of this process of getting ready, we amended standing orders to enable councillors to attend meetings by audio-visual means. But there is an issue that remains around the Local Government Act, which requires a quorum to be physically present. The quorum for council is 5, which would mean right through this lockdown for however long that ultimately turns out to be, we would always need 5 councillors to be able to be physically present. That feels inappropriate at a time of lockdown, and it also could potentially be difficult if the pandemic were to take hold. So we are proposing that Council forms a COVID-19 response committee. It will be all members of Council. The committee will have all the powers that the Council itself has, except for those expressly prohibited by legislation, and they're listed in this report. And then because it is a new committee, we can then establish that it has a quorum of 2. So the quorum of 2, we only ever require 2 councillors to be present physically, and the rest can then join via audio-visual means. And our ability to make decisions to assist and guide the community such that the council needs to through this crisis is then more easily achieved by using this committee with its quorum of 2. So that is the purpose of this committee. By including all councillors, the intention is that everyone is included, so there's no small executive emergency committee that takes on the burden or the responsibility on their own. Everyone is in this together. And in conjunction with the formation of this committee is the suspension, or the proposed suspension, of all other committees except the Library and Civic Centre PCG. All those other committees essentially only have recommending authority to council anyway, and so the idea in a lockdown that we would need to consider matters for recommending to council feels inconsistent with the need to keep people at home, and therefore we're proposing to suspend the work of committees. The Library and Civic Centre PCG is slightly different because it has external people on that, and that committee does have some delegated authorities already from council to continue to progress that project. So that's why we have made or proposed that is an exception. So I think that's enough of an explanation, and I'll just repeat, every council in New Zealand is contemplating either doing this or an alternative, which is to delegate most of the authority and powers to the Chief Executive, which we are not proposing to do. So happy to answer any questions. It's in the context of a lockdown. It's in the context of trying to minimise people moving around the district, which includes councillors as much as it does anyone else, trying to encourage agile decision making using modern technology while we keep our community safe.
Thank you, Hamish, and I'm sure the councillors have got some questions there, and we have one from Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. So the community, it says in point 4 that the report has been circulated to the community board. Has that's been circulated, or will that be done after this meeting?
Neil, please make sure everybody speaks directly into their microphone, otherwise we can't hear them.
Can
Got to
you-
be right, real particular.
Can you hear Liz at the moment, Stuart?
Well, she started off all right, then she started to fade.
We'll make sure she doesn't fade.
So I'll just repeat the question. Ooh. Has the community board been sent this report?
So the community board will be sent the decision of council today. I believe they've seen the report, but it's more importantly in the recommendation, it's going to be resolved that the council is going to circulate the report once the decision is made.
John, nice and loud into the microphone.
Will the meetings be open to the press and the public, or will there be a report issued after each meeting?
Our intention is that they would be open to the public, but if the committee is considering matters that would otherwise require the public to be excluded, then of course those portions of the meeting will have the public excluded. But the fundamental premise is that these meetings would be open to the public. And we're in the good position where our meetings are live streamed, and we will obviously continue to do that. And we get good coverage, obviously, from our media attendees at this meeting. In the event that they are unable in the future to come to such meetings, then the live streaming will be a more and more important mechanism to ensure the community can see the work of council.
Just have one question. The committee will have a life, and what is the life of the committee, or we just leave it live until we get through this and then decide to cancel that committee?
Yes, that is absolutely the intention, and by naming it the COVID-19 Response Committee rather than a more general emergency committee, we're signalling that it is being formed for a specific reason, for extraordinary times. It's clearly linked to the COVID pandemic and our need to function through that time. When that is no longer the case, then the clear implication, and in fact we can state it out loud, is that this committee would no longer operate. And it's formed by council, and council can abolish it at the point that it feels appropriate.
Councillor Brown?
I've got another question. Having open meetings, does it mean the public can be here or just watching it by videos?
We imagine there will be no public here because they are in lockdown. I cannot imagine why a member of the public, when the Prime Minister has asked everyone to stay home, would decide that coming to a council meeting was somehow essential. So yes, they will be public meetings, but I would be horrified if a member of the public physically turned up while we are in lockdown.
In the terms of reference, it says that we will meet weekly. Is that a guide or is that a must?
The intention is to continue to create this agile vehicle for council decision making. So weekly felt appropriate as part of a recommendation to establish this committee in that fashion. It may be, of course, that is too often. It may be that with the community in lockdown and council's operating focus is on providing essential services, which requires little decision-making from council through that time, we may find that this committee does not need to meet that often. We didn't want, however, to set this up in a fashion that suggested that 6 weekly was okay in the middle of a crisis either. So we said weekly in the recommendation. Possibly better is to say weekly unless otherwise altered by the Mayor. That might be a better way to give the flexibility, because if we start meeting weekly and find that have got little to meet for, then that would seem silly as well. But the intention is not that it's cumbersome and takes too long and we're ages away from the next opportunity to make decisions. It's to show that agility and speed that we think the crisis may or may not need.
Yes, Stuart, question from you?
Yes, I've got a question. We have an emergency committee of 2. Do the rest of the councillors, are they expected to come into those meetings, or are we all going to be live streamed apart from the 2 who we delegate as emergency?
The intention is that people, councillors, would be all zooming in via audio-visual means. The Prime Minister has made it really clear the lockdown is to stop the spread of this disease. The lockdown is to stop people from freely circulating in the community and running the risk of spreading this disease. So we would hope that that this committee can operate by the minimum quorum possible, which is 2, and that every other councillor would be able to join by audio-visual means. Because the alternative position is simply more people circulating around the community at the time when we're trying to prevent that. It behoves us to have the technology to make this work, you know, and one of the things about this meeting with a couple of councillors coming in via Zoom, we got this ideal opportunity to test how that works. And so we do need the technology to work. I'm sure we'll get better at this as we go through the month. But the hope is that we're minimising the need for people to circulate in the community to break the chance of this pandemic, you know, gripping our community.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Oh, sorry. So if there's a quorum of 2, will it be the same 2 people? It seems sensible to me that if we're in lockdown, we might as well delegate 2 people to be on this quorum, because I think a lot of us will want to stay at home if we can. I don't know whether we do this in this meeting or we do this in a further meeting, but I just don't see how that would work, because I understand we need a quorum of 2 and to have 2 physically people, which they're going to be in this building. Does that mean someone has to travel for half an hour to come down to a meeting, or will we say, actually, no, we want a couple of people who are in town, or will it be a move?
Yeah, no, I do understand. I think I understand the question. I think the issue will. I would caution against delegating named people, because those people may very well be the ones who, for whatever reason, can't come in, it does require 2. I think the mechanism to ensure that there are 2 needs some coordination, perhaps through the Mayor or myself, prior to the meeting, so that the 2 who are coming in know who they are and they can agree that they can come in. But if a named person, or even the named position, whether that was, say, the Mayor or Deputy Mayor, if they find that they're dealing with COVID in their own personal life, well, it would clearly be inappropriate for them to be one of the 2. And so naming them at the front end just sets us up to sort of fail. But we do need to coordinate that, and I guess through the Mayor prior to the meeting would be the best way to do that.
Councillor Falloon?
2 questions. One, I presume the quorum is the Mayor plus 2 councillors?
No, because the Mayor might be incapacitated, and so the quorum is simply 2. Logically, the operation of the committee would probably include the chair being one of the 2, but in the event that the Mayor is unable to come in, then clearly we don't want to restrict the operation of this committee to his health.
Right. Second question, just looking at the draft terms of reference. Number 4, consider submissions and convene any hearings as part of the 2020-2021 draft annual plan process. is that if the committee make changes to the existing plan that's already out in draft form?
No, it was more to contemplate the situation that we've got a little bit of chicken and egg. The Audit, Finance and Audit Risk and Finance Committee has recommended that there is no need for consultation on this year's annual plan, but only council can decide that, and they will be meeting on the 9th of April to confirm that as part of that meeting. If the council decided consultation was required, then we need a mechanism to consider that process, and this is making it clear that this group would be the ones to handle the consultation process if council were so decide.
Councillor Mackay?
Mr Mayor, the question I have come from the answer that the Chief Executive gave to the Deputy Mayor about us turning up to meetings. I had presumed that the normal decline accept emails would arrive, so am I presuming they won't arrive and we have to put in a separate function? I hope not.
No, declining and accepting could either be physical or by remote. But if the meeting, for example, clashes with an unavoidable absence, the decline will mean you won't be on either. So the acceptance now that we have audio-visual linking will be to attend. You will be an attendee or not by one means or another.
So there'll be a, may I? So, Mr Mayor, there'll be a separate system set up, I presume.
We'll need to clarify understanding attendance or audio-visual link. Yeah.
Councillor Brown?
My question is around it as well. If you've got a quorum of 2 who are here, all the other ones could zoom in. So they still are able to make suggestions and hear the whole, whatever is to be discussed. So they, to me, they're still part of the decision making. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct.
Then I'm
Our,
more than happy
our
with it.
standing orders now allow attendance at the meeting to be either in person or by audio-visual means. And so, for example, this meeting, Stuart and Roger are attending the meeting. They're in the same, they have all the same rights and responsibilities that you have sitting here. They can debate, they can move motions, they can vote, they are attending the meeting. The anomaly is that the quorum has to be physically present.
Yep.
So we're dealing with the quorum primarily, not the status of attendance, which was sorted out last week via the standing orders change.
Yep. Then I don't see any problems with this proposal.
Councillor McMillan?
I just have one thing to clarify, and then I'd like to move the recommendation. Could the Mayor chair the meeting via Zoom?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone attending the meeting by Zoom is attending it in exactly the same capacity as someone in the room.
Okay.
The only thing they don't count for is the quorum.
Thank you. So would you like me to read through the whole recommendation? Make sure everyone can hear me. So the recommendation is that Council receives the report, that Council establishes the COVID-19 Response Committee in accordance with the terms of reference contained in Appendix 1, noting that the committee will have all the delegated powers, duties and functions of the Council except those specified in the Local Government Act, and that the committee will have a quorum of 2 members. That Council resolves with immediate effect that meetings of all Council's committees, with the exception of the Library and Civic Centre Project Control Group, are suspended until further notice. That Council notes that the Community Board meetings will not be held until further notice, and where possible, staff will use best endeavours to seek board member views about matters that are subject to decisions that impacts their Community Board area. Number 5, that Council circulates this report to the Methven Community Board. I'd like to move that.
And I will second that, Mr Mayor.
Moved Councillor McMillan, seconded Councillor Brown. Open for debate. No debate. With there be no debate, I'll put the motion. I am in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? No. Do we have a no? Or was? No. Aye. It just come in a wee bit late. Aye. I declare the motion passed. Declare the motion. And I'll just, before we close the meeting, I'll just say a few words that we're in unprecedented times at the moment. We're heading into lockdown for a reason, a very serious reason, and it's to stop the virus. We, as a council, we are ready. The Chief Executive informed me this morning, we are ready as a council. So, but Hamish, I'd like to thank you and your team. You've gone up and above the call of duty to get us to where we are today to keep our communities safe. So thank you very much for that. And I know the last few days have been stressful, but you've achieved it, and we think we are ready. So the people out there, we need to obey the government directives. We need to be kind to one another, we need to stay safe, and we need to keep in touch with each other. And we can do that by electronic means. We need to look out for the vulnerable people. We need to keep calm, and as I said before, we need to keep in touch with each other. We will get through this together. Kia kaha, Mid Canterbury. We will see you soon. I declare the meeting closed.